On January the 27th, 1838, before the Young Men's Lyceum of Springfield, Illinois, a 28-year-old Abraham Lincoln delivered what we now call the Lyceum Address. He warned, quote, "If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide," end quote. Lincoln was not warning about foreign invasion. He was warning about national self-destruction. Nearly 188 years later, Judge J. Michael Luttig has issued a warning of his own, not about armies abroad, not about adversaries overseas, but about constitutional erosion from within. Luttig, you will remember, is a modern-day patriot. He had foreknowledge of the plan to upend the results of the 2020 election. He also said January 6th was no riot, no protest that spun out of control. January 6th was the entirely predictable culmination of a deliberate lie, the lie that the election of 2020 had been stolen. It was a sophisticated and coordinated effort to disrupt and potentially discard a lawful and peaceful transfer of power. In the hours before January 6th, Judge Luttig advised Vice President Mike Pence that the Constitution did not permit the election to be overturned. Luttig did not equivocate. He did not invent some authority. He simply upheld the law. Not because doing so would be a popular move for a longtime conservative Republican jurist, because it wasn't. That move cost him friends and earned him death threats. Luttig did it because it was right. Last week, when accepting honorary membership in the New York City Bar Association, Judge Luttig drew a straight line from that moment, January 6th, to this one. He argues that we never fully reckoned with what January 6th represented, not politically, not legally, not culturally. And that failure to reckon with it is not new in our history. In fact, at the founding of the Republic, Thomas Paine warned what happens when power is abused and left unanswered. In 1776, he wrote, "A long and violent abuse of power is generally the means of calling the right of it into question." Paine was not romanticizing rebellion. He was describing escalation. January 6th was violent. January 6th was an abuse of power. And abuses of power, if indulged, do not recede. They expand. In his remarks last week in New York, Luttig made clear that preserving constitutional order cannot be left to a single office or even a single moment. It is the work of all of us, all the time, because these are the times that try men's souls. He closed by invoking another patriot, one who confronted intimidation and state force and insisted that constitutional rights be honored anyway. Martin Luther King Jr. once warned, quote, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Dr. King was speaking about moral courage in the face of injustice. Judge Luttig was speaking about constitutional courage in the face of pressure. And he was clear. It's not enough to speak. It's not even enough just to vote. That's something nearly 40% of Americans do not do, by the way, even in the most competitive presidential elections. Voting is necessary, Luttig told me, but it is not sufficient. The Constitution anticipates something more. It anticipates citizens who will use their voices, their hands, their feet, their dollars. It anticipates citizens who will insist peacefully and lawfully that power remain answerable to the people. We must voice the very dissent that this nation's patriot forefathers voiced. Our dissent must be heard. It must be felt in the foundations of those buildings in Washington. The First Amendment protects your right to speak and your right to assemble and your right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And right now, we have legitimate grievances about an unceasingly illegitimate government. Those rights were not written for calm seasons. They were written for moments like this, for the times that try men's souls. January 6th tested our constitutional order. What we do next will define it. But I am hopeful. American resolve is on full display again. Across this country, citizens are showing up in city halls, in state houses, in special elections. And on March 28th, Americans will gather peacefully across this country under a simple banner: No Kings. 10 million people are expected to take to America's streets in one of the largest coordinated demonstrations in recent memory. The last two gatherings were peaceful. There were no arrests. This is assembly. This is the exercise of a constitutional right. This nation rejected a monarch once before. It does not recognize one now. These are the times that try men's souls, but this is also the time for our citizenry to shine.